It's an awful pity to see the handball alleys around the country going into disrepair and falling in. They're still being left there because probably there's nobody there to play on them, you know. You hit the ball hard with your hand, there's a certain sound of it bouncing up. That sound ricochets all over, you know. And especially when you hit a good ball, you can hear it bouncing. Some of the local people that live down there missed that as well. They'd missed the cheers and the excitement and the sound of the ball hitting the wall.
Terrible. It's terrible just to think of them. And I'm sure some of the older generation, their heart goes out to think that the handball alley is lying there stagnant, idle, sitting on its own.
But there's a lot of goodwill, you know, towards the ball alley, and always will be because of tradition. You know, it's a traditional game and it's tradition.
Handball in Ireland is probably going on since time immemorial. There are written reports going way back from the 15th and 16th and 17th century of games being played against castle walls, and the game moved on then. It was always very popular because it could be played very locally against a wall, perhaps even a church wall, certainly played against pub walls.
Gable walls of houses all over the country. That's where people learned how to play handball. That's where handball started. You could play on the side wall of a house for the whole day, and there would be no cars at that time. So there was no cars to interfere with the game. As the time went on, they started to build handball alleys. The 30s, 1936 was the handball alley in Ballyshannon was started and was finished in 37. So I'd say a lot of the handball alleys in the country would have been built around the same time.
While people were busy, they were working largely on the land, they were skilled with their hands, and guys were prepared to voluntarily give of their time to build those alleys.
The walls, they were not cement blocks back then. They were built with, as far as I know, they used to run certain sections at a time and fill them up like wood on each side and fill them up with cement, mass concrete or whatever it's called, stones, fill it in. And think about it, those walls are still standing there after all those years.
The court was a facility where people could go for entertainment. They were also used for crossroad dances. There were meeting places. There was probably a bit of skullduggery went on in the odd one as well. And I'm sure that there's a lot of couples that maybe would never have met but for a handball court being in their area.
Handball was a kind of a social sport. It was played in every village in Ireland. It was where people met up at the handball alley on a Sunday. Usually it was Sunday because men worked during the week. So it was a Saturday or a Sunday that the games were played mostly.
I think I was 12 or 13 before I ventured down there. And it was like going into another world, you know, the big alley and all the adults playing that you heard about, you know, and go down to watch them playing. And then it was so busy at that stage that you would have to go down maybe, well, you hadn't a chance in the evening. So you just had to sneak in, you might get one game, and then the adults came and you had to move off to let them on. There was a kind of a history or a culture of playing for money. That made it competitive, of course, for there's no money around. Everyone's fighting for their life, like for a few pennies. So it made it very competitive, the games, you know. And then there was one of the guys, they were employed, they'd be hustling. And there's one guy lived off it, actually. I remember he was saving up to buy a suit. And he had a guy with him, he used to hand him over the money. And he said, don't give it to me no matter what I say, don't give it to me. And he wanted to buy a Liberace suit, whatever kind of a suit that was at the time.
I mean, the battles I've had for a few pennies, maybe 5 pence years ago, was unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. And you got out of that alley as soon as you won the money, because the guy mightn't be too happy with you.
We had handball when we had nothing else, pretty much. Locally, it was a big deal. There wasn't a lot of other things going on, especially in the early 50s into the 60s. Ireland was a very poor country, and a lot of people didn't have a lot. So having a handball place, somewhere to go, play sports, kept you out of trouble. It was always a good place to go.
When you're interested in handball, every time you see a handball court somewhere, you're always taking a look to see what it is. And unfortunately, quite a number of courts that I come across are the old derelict 60 by 30 courts. Some of them are still very easily recognisable as handball courts. Others of them have been reduced to heaps of stone.
The demise of the alley was contemporaneous with dip in economic circumstances in rural Ireland and the inevitability of emigration. And, as this happened across rural Ireland, it was inevitable that the alley fell into decay. There simply were no users.
There may have been some of it attached to emigration, but I don't think it all was attached to that. I am sure that these indoor box alleys that started to arise at that time became another place where you could play in the winter time. So that could be a factor in why they started to all fall by the wayside around the same time.
The 40-foot by 20-foot game has definitely had an impact on the older 60-30 game. It caused somewhat of a decline in it. I can understand why young people love playing 40 by 20, because you have it on a maple floor. They can dive around the floor after the ball. They don't skin their knees or anything like that would happen on the concrete floor of a 60-foot by 30-foot court.
Indoor alley is a different game altogether. You know, when you're out in the open and you have the big court, it's far nicer to, because it's kind of claustrophobic in the indoor alley. I think it is anyway. Whereas you're out there, you're in open air and fresh air to breathe and all that. And there's no bother there. Our Handball alley would have went the same way, only for in 2010 we went down and started to play handball again. We decided to form a club, and we raised over £2,000 from local people that thought it was a great idea. So we got a new floor in and relined it, and that's brought it back to nearly to perfection.
I think there's a message from the Ballyshannon Handball Alley. A handball alley can be revamped. I think any old handball structure should be kept. They should not be tossed, as far as I'm concerned. And it's surprising how players will show up if the handball alley is there for the play on.
I feel sad. I feel very sad, because I see alleys everywhere that are derelict. And it really, and I'd know the history of them. Like, I'd know the passion that was there on days, and now it's gone.
The future, unless we get new talent in and new blood, we're not going to be able to play forever. I'm in my 60s now and I'm still playing the game. But it doesn't look good at the moment, As I said, unless we get new players, we can't play forever.
When I used to go down the mall and the alley was derelict, and I could imagine, I could hear the boys' voices, the ghosts of the boys that played before me, and I was very, very emotional some of the times, because I could imagine you could hear the boys that I knew, and some of them have died now, and some great characters, like. It's a sad sight to see them. They should be all listed, building and preserved. They're part of our culture, they're part of tradition, and they should be preserved in reality. Like they're not interfering with anything. Because once they go down, they'll never be replaced.